Question from Peter Jones, 354. How can people use creative arts to fight racism in academia slash education?
That's great. That's a great question. Write about it for starters, and also share the work of people who are writing about it. And I think you have already talked about this a little bit. Is just start by interrogating yourself. If you are a white person, especially, and even if you're not, you have to also interrogate your internalized biases, because I have internalized biases, and I was raised in, you know, in an anti-Black world, despite growing up with people who looked like me. And I've had to interrogate and investigate a lot of my own prejudices. And even though I might, I think from, for instance, a young age, for instance, I said, I never thought it was wrong to be gay or for gay people to get married, but I still had internalized queer phobia and still laughed at jokes I shouldn't have laughed at. And I've had to work through that as a cishet woman. So I think, yeah, you have to keep interrogating yourself. Be careful. The same way, I remember once in a workshop at NYU, Kimiko Han said, you don't write a poem about boredom by being boring. Don't write a poem about racism by being racist. So you have to keep thinking about, am I interrogating these ideas honestly? Am I perpetuating these negative ideas that are already existing and causing harm in the world? And if you're not careful, you can do more harm than good, and more damage than good that way. Like that's how Tony Hoagland kind of stepped in it with Claudia Rankin. And yeah, there's that whole idea. Even like, I don't want to blindside you with this, but we even talked about the whole idea of, for instance, as a white man, interrogating what would cause you to kind of put a Chinese spiritual practice as your DJ name. And you were very honest. I thought about it. I studied philosophy, and that's where that comes from. And I believe very strongly in cultural exchange. I grew up in a very multicultural society. I celebrated Diwali, Christmas, Easter, and Eid al-Fitr growing up. That's Trinidadian culture.
Okay.
But yeah, it is worth interrogating, examining, having a conversation, maybe talking to people within the Taoist community or the Asian American community, and seeing how they feel about it. And they do not have the obligation to answer you and to engage in that dialogue, but some of them may be willing. So that's the thing. And I just, I wrote a poem that I worked on for like a year that kind of talks about the stereotypes I learned from, about indigenous people. And my great grandmother was indigenous Venezuelan. And I was very careful in looking at that piece and asking people from various indigenous communities, if I am talking about this idea where I was taught that, these people are savages, when I say the word savage, is it clear that I'm interrogating that idea of savagery, or does it come off as me saying Native people are savages, for instance? So you just have to keep kind of questioning things.
Sure, absolutely. And you brought up our conversation from yesterday, and I would just like to say I really appreciated that conversation, because it helped me to think about something that I hadn't really put much thought to. Here, even in the midst of trying to have this conversation about racism and all these different things, so it is just a reminder to me that it's work that never ends, and it never should end, because nobody is a finished product, nobody is perfect, and we all need to keep kind of figuring out what's going on in here for ourselves if we really want to be helpful to other people. Otherwise, like you said, it's like you might do more harm than good, and that's not the good way to go about it. So yeah, thank you for your answer. Thank you for the conversation.
Thank you. I appreciated the fact that you were willing to. That's what I'm asking, is people being willing to hear
right.
and like think about these things, because appropriation is a very fuzzy concept for a lot of people, and I am not from that religious community or that ethnic community, so it's not really for me to say. I just think it's important that you respond as you did, with a kind of openness and a willingness to investigate, which was perfect.
And I would like to encourage any white people who are listening that this is kind of an important idea to remember, is that when it comes to race, it's easy to feel defensive and put off by somebody making a comment or a suggestion. And just remember that that is not helpful, that it's important to keep an open mind and to be receptive to hearing what people say, because that's the only way to grow. Because the fact is, no matter who you are, where you're from, what your experience is, we all have room to grow. And if we don't push forward on that road, then we're going to stay where we are, and the world is not going to get better. Okay, end of my sermon. We have a little bit of time. Did you have a poem you wanted to share or anything like that?
Yeah, I could share a poem. And I just want to say, a lot of times when I'm coming up against some friction or some uncomfortable conversations with white people, I hear them talking the talk. I don't necessarily see them practicing. So what I'm seeing in this conversation is you actually trying to practice, because we don't expect anybody to be perfect. We don't expect anybody to have all the answers. I just want to see that you're trying. So thank you again. I will go on